this part of the evening. I, as these events are normally organized, it's over 2 days. And the first day, we have a panel discussion with the authors, and then on the second day is the award ceremony. And as those of you who know me over many years now, I've always run away from the second day. I love the first event because all the shortlisted authors are, in my eyes, prize winners. Each one of these books is such a remarkable contribution. Each one is a brilliant example of the very samud that each of you have been calling for in your own works. And I don't envy the judges who have to choose between the amazing books on this shortlist to decide which of the ones they actually decide to make a Palestine Book Award to. But on this call, there are a number of the judges who are here with us. So I salute you. And ordinarily, I would click off at this point and leave, but I feel that steadfastness requires that I break my own habits and I stay right through to the end and hear the announcements of this year's awards. To do so, I call on my dear friend Noor Masalha, who will be speaking on behalf of the judges to talk you through their decisions. Noor, the rest of the evening is to you. That was so dramatic, and yet I'm hearing nothing from Noor. Have we lost Noor on the call? You better hope that we haven't lost Noor, because I'm not pulling your leg. I'm not one of the jury, and I don't have a clue who's won any prizes this year. So I'm very much hoping we can get Noor back to complete the process. Aisha, are you still with us?
I think he was disconnected, but maybe he will be coming soon.
Yeah, he's joining us now. He's joining us now.
Noor, are you there? It's been a hard night, dear friends. So to end with a bit of comedy is not bad. It's funny, Dareen, I thought if we were going to lose anyone this evening, it was you. The idea that the occupation extends to central London is really worrying.
I'm sorry about that.
Astaghfirullah. So glad to have you with us. I see Masal coming on. I'm going to assume that's Noor. He's still muted. Noor, are you there? Unmute yourself. We're dying of suspense here. If you're not careful, I'm going to slip into speaking Arabic again, which will take everyone to hang up on the call.
I can say a few words for the judges until he's ready, maybe.
Afaf, I think as
okay,
well. There we have him.
I'm back, actually. I'm really sorry about this. It wasn't my fault. مساء الخير للجميع. And let me begin with a big thank you to our speakers, amazing speakers. Listening to the speakers and the first part, it amazes me how inspiring our people are, how resilient people are, and how people, despite the horrific scenes we have from Gaza, our people are incredibly resilient. The first part of this evening focused on solidarity with Gaza. So I'm not going to go back to this. I'm going to move very quickly to the second part of the evening, which is focusing on the books, on the winning categories of the books. And just to say that our judges, Dawood, Afaf, Ashjan, Firas, Ibrahim, and Sawad, we found it very difficult this year to choose the shortlist and also to choose the winners. We had 55 books submitted, an incredibly long list, a milestone in the history of the Palestine Book Awards, a huge list, enormous variety, diversity, the richness of the list. And I do want to actually say that our Palestinian narrative is winning. Just to look at this list of publication and submission to the, but I want to link the first part and the second part of this evening, the first part about Gaza and the second part specifically about the books. And I want to say that the Palestine Book Awards and cultural resistance and solidarity with Gaza go hand in hand. Let me take you quickly, without further ado, to the winning categories this evening. Our judges have decided on 5 winning categories: creative, إبداع, academic, الكتاب الأكاديمي, translation, ترجمة, memoirs, مذكرات, and counterculture, الثقافة المضادة أو الثقافة المقاومة. And also we have a Lifetime Achievement Award winner at the end, which I will announce. So I'm beginning to actually announce the winners. And for the first category of creative إبداع, the winner is Doreen Tutur. I sing from the window of exile. Doreen, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you are the winner. You've got the chance to talk about the book, not about Gaza, specifically about your poetry, your amazing poetry. Tell us more about your work and this specific book.
Yeah, thank you. This book I wrote when I was in Sweden and in prison. I talk in the book about my feeling that I live in prison, especially in prison, and after then in Sweden, when I was in Sweden, that I was in exile, very close to be 3 years, and in the prison I was stayed in prison very close to be 3 years again, and all this period I have too much feeling. I make it all this feeling in my writing, and this is what I do with these points. I have just what was happening with me in prison and in exile. I wrote the poems. This how I get this book to the world, just to say to the people a message that what the prisoners feel, what the people, the Palestinian people feel when they was in exile, or the refugees, or everyone have the feeling far from the homeland. And I think this especially suffers too much people, Palestinian people, suffering about this feeling. And when I was in Sweden, I feel a very strange feeling, and I don't can to continue my life normal, because that I have my decision to back to Palestine and to live in this dangerous living. This book is very special for me, and I'm very happy this moment, because it's very strange feeling, because at yet I don't know how is the book, how my book, and really I'm I don't know what to say about that, but thank you, Neil. Thank you for the publisher that believe about these poems, and
it's amazing. It's amazing book of poetry, and also coming from a relatively young person. And I know you are a photographer, Doreen, and is there any connection briefly between your photography and your poems? This is what I felt, actually. Is there any point, Ashley, you want to make about this issue?
Yes. Really, when I wrote any poems, I'm directly shot some photos about the feeling that I feel in the poems. And the same when I was shooting some photos, I write a poetry about that. And this what happened with this book. All the poems in the book, I have photos for this poems. And the cover, I shot it. It's like it's very like a documentary live. I make my my poetry, documentary poetry about my life, and the same with my photos I make.
Brilliant, yeah. Keep up the good work. I'll move on to the second category, which is academic, and the winner is Nadim Bawalsa, Transitional Palestine, Migration and the Right of Return. Nadim, you talked a bit about the right of return after 1948, but this book is about the right of return before 1948. Can you tell us more about this book?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. I can't. I'll try to be as brief as possible, but the book traces the struggle for the right of return, for the Palestinian right of return, 23 years prior to the one we know to have started in 1948. It examines specifically the British Mandate period and the legislation that British Mandate authorities or legislated in Palestine, specifically the Palestinian Citizenship Order in Council in 1925, through which the British naturalized tens of thousands of incoming Jewish immigrants or settlers to Palestine as Palestinians at the expense of tens of thousands. By 1936, we're talking about 40,000 Palestinians who had migrated to Latin America, starting 30 up to 40 years prior to the mandate, for economic opportunity. And they had been, like Lebanese and Syrian and, sort of all communities of the old world, especially the Mediterranean basin, had been doing for much of the latter half of the 19th century and early 20th. They have been migrating back and forth and bringing back money and riches and building homes and bringing relatives back with them and reestablishing Jaliat or migrant communities in abroad. But the Palestinians were the only ones who were denied the citizenship of the nations that they were to inherit through the mandate system. Unlike the Lebanese and the Syrian migrants who were applying for French, Lebanese, and French Syrian citizenship while abroad, the Palestinians were denied it because, and that's what the book examines, because of British priorities to the Zionists and to inhabiting Palestinians or Palestine with Jewish settlers and naturalizing them as Palestinians. Some British authorities even said, well, simply Palestine won't fit enough of these migrants wishing to settle Palestine, so we'll just prioritize the Jews over the indigenous Palestinians. So rather than that being the only story of the book, the more important, I think, and relevant aspect of the book is the struggle for return and what these migrant communities from all the way from North America to the southern tip of South America, from New York to Santiago, Chile, Mexico City, Monterrey, Saltillo, Honduras, Peru, Argentina, Brazil, everywhere. They're gathering together, drafting petitions, sending them to Geneva, to London, to Jerusalem, protesting, using the very language used by the British in their international legal treatises, like the Treaty of Lausanne and the Treaty of Sèvres, these laws that formed the foundations of international law that we know today. about citizenship rights and nationality rights. So what we're seeing happening today in the ICJ and the ICC, whether it's Palestinians themselves or those defending them, using the very language crafted by the colonizers and these global empires, using it against them is something the Palestinians had been doing in the Americas for quite a long time, well before 1948. Very, very strategic language that they would not only research, but then get translated, because they would be writing in either Spanish or Arabic, depending where they were, and then getting it translated into English, sent to vice consulates across the Americas. And then those vice consuls would send these petitions off to London or Jerusalem or Geneva. So it was this incredible network of activism that really started at the grassroots level by Palestinians and their allies, much like what we're seeing today. And of course, one could say, well, it didn't work back then. What's to think it would work now? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that that we don't keep trying, and it doesn't mean that the narrative, sort of, now that we have the legal backing, or now that we have the foundations of international law with us, what does that mean for us in these courts of law? What does it mean to send a petition versus appearing before the ICJ and staking a claim to these judges? It remains to be seen, but I'm hoping that what this book does is empower more communities across the world, not only to seek justice, whether through international legal forums or through petition writing or through newspapers or through any means of activism at their disposal, but to also come together and realize that Palestine is everywhere. Palestine is in the Andes. Palestine is in the Amazon. Palestine is all over the Americas, Europe. It's as far as the Philippines. Jacob Norris found Palestinian Bethlehemites selling mother of pearl as early as 1900, if not before, in the ports of Manila. So we are everywhere. Our documents are everywhere. Our struggle to return is a century old. In fact, it's not. It's just 75 years old. What that means, I think, remains to be seen. But I hope it brings more people together, more people to go visit those archives, more people to now use social media to connect with Palestinians in Chile and Honduras and Peru and Haiti and all over. And what this means for Palestine itself, I hope, in the least, is a sense of empowerment, a sense of feeling less alone in this, and the reality that we know to be Palestine.
Wonderful, Nadim. We, the judges, agreed this is a unique book. So congratulations. I'll move on to our third category, which is translation. And the winner is Ibrahim Mohawi, who could not be with us tonight, Among the Almond Trees. I'll just say something about actually Hussein Barghouti, the author of this incredibly important memoirs. Hussein actually died in 2002, but he was a polymath. He was a poet, he was a writer, he was an academic, an essay, a critic, a lyricist, a playwright, a philosopher, and also he taught for business at university. But sadly, he developed cancer in his late 40s, and he wrote these memoirs after he was quite ill. And this is actually a meditation on his childhood in his village in central Palestine, and on his house, and on his return to his village in Palestine. And also the way he describes his house surrounded by olive and fig trees and almond trees. It's an incredible memoirs, and also by a prolific Palestinian author and someone who deserves to be recognized. And fortunately, Ibrahim Mohawi wasn't with us tonight, so I'll have to actually move on to our fourth winning category, which is memoirs. And the winners are Ahed Tamimi and Dina Takruri. Ahed, congratulations. Can you hear me? Hello? They
I think
called
she's
me
on
a
the call.
lioness.
Yeah, I think she's muted, but we'll get her back
She's
on.
muted. Okay.
Maybe.
Do you want to say something about they called me a lioness, Dima? I know you are a co-author.
Yes. Ahed, are you there? Do you want to say something first?
صورة
احكي
كان
بالعربي مش
مقاطع
مهم.
من عندي. بدنا أحكي بالأول بعدين بحكي.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much. This is such a great honor, and it's an honor to be recognized among such incredible Palestinian voices. I want to say Mabruk to Ahed, and I want to congratulate her and thank her for this project that we embarked on. You know, I first met Ahed in 2018, right when she was released from prison. And she was only 17 years old at the time. And I was lucky to get one of the first interviews with her for AJ Plus. And this girl was fresh out of prison, surrounded by press, reeling from the trauma of 8 months in prison as a teenager. And I was completely blown away by just how powerful and steadfast and inspiring she was, and how she articulated the hopes and the grievances and the pain of Palestinians, and just her conviction, her absolute conviction, which remains to this day, that Palestine will be free and that she will hopefully be among the last generation of Palestinians to live this life under a brutal military occupation that has robbed her and so many others of so much. So we embarked on this project together. It's her memoir. They called me a lioness, a Palestinian girl's fight for freedom, but it's also the story of every other Palestinian child growing up like her. You know, I really tried to write this in a way that honored her voice, and also made it very accessible and digestible to an American audience and to English speakers everywhere that don't know anything about Palestine. And what has given me a lot of hope since October 7th is how thousands of people have bought it. And if you look on TikTok, you see girls, teenagers, American ones, like doing book reviews, and so many messages that I get daily saying that people didn't understand anything about Palestine, but this book really helped them understand, and it made them feel. I want to recognize that, you know, since its publication, Ahid was arrested once again and was incarcerated for no reason, for no charge whatsoever, and was imprisoned under very harsh circumstances. And that other people that we write about in the book, including her father, Bassem Tamimi, remains in an Israeli prison right now under administrative detention. They have no way of contacting him. And we call on his immediate release. Khaled al-Jarrar, who we also write about, was rearrested weeks ago, remains in an Israeli prison under administrative detention. And we call for her release again. We're deeply worried and concerned about them. This occupation is out of control, and Israel is, you know, really escalated next level genocidal mania, which is alarming to all of us. But we remain steadfast in our hope and hopeful in our dream of liberation and freedom for everyone. So thank you to everyone, and I'd love for Ahed to say something.
Thank you, Dina.
أول
Ahed,
شيء
Or go ahead. Sorry.
أول شيء شكرا لكم، وشكرا لدينا اللي كانت الشخص اللي بقدر أحكي له كل مشاعري بكل راحة، لأني أنا طول عمري بني آدمة ما بحكي عن مشاعري ولا عن أي إشي بخصني، فكانت دينا من الناس القلال كتير اللي قدرت إنه أكون على طبيعتي معهم. بدي أشكر أبوي اللي لولا أنا ما قدرت أعمل ولا أي إشي، اللي هو هسه موجود بالسجن. بدي أهديه هذا الإنجاز وأحكي له أنا يعني مش راح أقدر أفرح غير لما تنتهي الحرب ولما يكون بيننا. بدي أشكر كمان خالدة جرار اللي كانت الحدا اللي وعاني على كتير شغلات، واللي هي هسه برضه موجودة بالسجن، اللي أعطتني هذا طول أنا بالسجن أعطتني أمل إنه إحنا السجن ما بحطمنا والسجن ما بكسرنا. بالعكس كانت سند إلي جوا السجن، كانت معلمة وحدا بتعلم منه كثير شغلات. للأسف إني مش قادرة أعطي هاي الفرحة حقها، لأنه زي ما حكيت، غزة ما خلتنا نقدر نعيش فرحتنا ولا نعيش حزننا كمان. وبتمنى إنه هذا الكتاب يكون علم كثير ناس عن القضية الفلسطينية. بتمنى إنه ما حد يقدر يضطر يكتب مذكرات زي هاي أو كتاب زي هذا بحياته، لأنه ما كانش إشي سهل، ما كانش إشي. بتذكر كنت كل مرة نقعد أنا ودينا، أو دينا تسألني سؤال وأشرح لها عن إيش صار معي، بالليل أبلش أحلم وكوابيس عن الإشي هذا اللي صار معي. فكان كتير صعب إنه أرجع زي كأني بدي أحكي كل إشي من أعماقي أو من جواي، وأطلع كل إشي أنا كنت بحاول أنساه. فبتمنى إنه ما حدش يضطر يكتب كتاب زي هذا. بتمنى الكتاب الجاي يكون عن مذكراتنا بالحرية والنصر إن شاء الله. وبتمنى إنه هذا عن جد يكون هذا الكتاب علم كثير ناس عن شو القضية الفلسطينية.
عهد، أنت اشتهرتي كطفلة مناضلة واشتهرتي بالإعلام، وكلنا تعرفنا عليك كطفلة اللي وقفتي قدام الاحتلال، جنود الاحتلال. السؤال، كتابة المذكرات هاي أثرت عليك شخصيا من ناحية تفكيرك، أسلوبك، من ناحية تطورك كمؤلفة، ككاتبة، كيف تأثير المذكرات عليك شخصيا وعلى مستقبلك؟ كيف تفكري
يعني
بالنسبة لمستقبلك ككاتبة؟
بقدرش أحكي لك إنه هاي المذكرات أثرت علي إنه كتبتها، لأنه هاي إشي أنا بالفعل عايشته. يعني هو أثر علي لأني أنا عشته، مش لأني أنا كتبته. فالتأثير كان بإني أنا عشت هيك إشي، مش أنا كتبت هيك إشي. تأثير أنا قدرت أكتب، أو أنا بقدر أكتب لأني عشت هذا الإشي، مش لأني كتبت عن المذكرات أو الإشي اللي صار معي. يعني بتمنى إنه بفكر يعني صرت بفكر لقدام إنه ممكن أكتب كمان بالعربي، ممكن أكتب إشي تاني أو نوع تاني من الكتب. بس إنه ما كانش إشي اللي إنه كتابة هاي المذكرات هي اللي أعطت علي تأثير. لا بالعكس، هو الإشي اللي عشته هو اللي خلاني أصلا أتأثر وأكتب هاي المذكرات. هاي هي.
Ahad and Dima, congratulations. Memoir, social memory, social history. This is one of our greatest contribution to Palestine studies. And I think we need more and more memoirs. We need more and more social memory. And I think social memory is also the way we speak, the way we represent ourselves, the way we define ourselves, the way we institute and constitute, and it's a form of self-determination. So congratulations to both of you. I'll move on to the fifth category, which is, we call it counterculture, and the winner is Tahrir Hamdi, Imagining Palestine. Tahrir, do you want to say something about your theoretical approach and intellectual approach, and why Imagining Palestine? Tahrir, can you hear me?
Unmute, yes, okay. Thank you very much, Noor. My book, Imagining Palestine, is really about hope. I wanted to present a sort of encyclopedia of Palestinian resistance, Palestinian cultural resistance, in addition to, of course, what we naturally know as armed resistance. But I very much believe in what the great theorists of revolutionary thinking and writing believe, that in order to have a successful revolution, in order to have successful armed resistance, one needs to have a very strong base of cultural resistance. Frantz Fanon said it. Amilcar Cabral said it, Edward Said said it. So I think that is very much an important part of my book. But also my book focuses on small spaces that have become very important sites of resistance. What I mean by that is like the margins of society, the margins of intellectuality. For example, if you look at refugee camps, they are marginalized places, but that is where resistance is born. In the same way that for Edward Said, for example, the intellectual is the person who is restless, who lives on the margins of society, metaphorically speaking, who is not satisfied with how things are. So the intellectual is very much related to the person living in a refugee camp. And the idea is to resist the hegemonic center, to resist oppression. And for me, imagining Palestine is the power to revolt, the power to resist, and the power to make real. We see that in the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish. We see that in the poetry of Murid Barghouthi, who is always imagining victory. We see that in the writings of Ghassan Kanafani, who is a novelist, an essayist, and political thinker and revolutionary thinker. And I want to mention Louis Alday here and thank him for his book. It's a brilliant book. And I'm working with a colleague of mine, Louis Breheny, on a book on Kanafani's political thought. So that should be coming out in 2024. So I feel that poetry, novels, memoirs, armed resistance, everything comes together. And this is what I wanted to show in my book. So it is the promise of a real, genuine liberation that I am certain is going to happen. I feel it. I felt it when I was writing the book. I felt it in the words of the people I interviewed, like Layla Khalid and Rifat, Allah yarhamu, and your own words, your words, Noor, and Ibrahim Ade, and all the Ilan Pape as well, who also very recently announced the beginning of the end of the Zionist project. So I very much believe that we are at the very edge and we are almost there. And I do believe in a collective return to Palestine, and it will happen, and in our lifetime. Thank you very much, Noor.
I love your work, and I know you focus on key figures such as Murid al-Barghouthi and Mahmoud Darwish and some of our best intellectual, Edward Said. But for someone living in Amman, and Amman is surrounded by refugee camps in Jordan, and I think these cultures of exile of the marginalized Palestinians in these refugee camps around Amman, how do they actually connect with this, if you like, engaged intellectuals? Is there any connection going on between these marginalized communities and some of our best intellectuals?
Absolutely. And this is the connection I make in my book, actually. For the marginalized in refugee camps, they live in temporariness, okay? This temporariness is almost like permanent, okay? It's a permanent temporariness. They are waiting in the same way that Naji al-Ali's Handala is waiting. They are waiting to return. They are restless. They are living in extreme poverty. They live in exile in the same way that the true intellectual, and this is what Edward Said means by what is an intellectual? An intellectual is a person who speaks on behalf of the oppressed. An intellectual does not live in an ivory tower, okay, and who is specialized in a certain, let's say, era or let's say genre of writing. An intellectual is a person who speaks for the oppressed and fights for the oppressed. So the intellectual then, if we see it in this way, lives in exile, a mental and metaphorical exile, and the refugee resident lives in a real physical geographical exile. The connection is clear. This kind of a lack of satisfaction, a lack of comfort, a restlessness that we all must have. Because when we look at what is happening today in Gaza, we are seeing a genocide happening in real time, videos. We did not see what happened in 1948. We found out later on, for example, when we heard about Tantura, but what we're seeing now is something happening in real time. So, but the fear is, the fear that I have is that this kind of genocide may become the normal. It's like we are normalizing it. We are almost becoming numb to it. And I think this is what we have to guard against. We cannot normalize genocide. We cannot normalize refugee camps. We cannot normalize displacement. And this is basically what my book is about, but also at the same time, my book is about hope. It is about imagining Palestine and imagining the true liberation of Palestine, which I really believe is going to happen.
We are enormously indebted to you and very proud of you. And I know you are one of our leading intellectuals. Congratulations to you. I'll move on to another important contributor, actually, to Palestine studies. And this time it's a Lifetime Achievement Award. And the winner is Dr. Rosemary Sire. Rosemary and I have been friends for what, three decades now. And I kind of was thinking about, how much contribution, how much work she's done on a whole range of things. But I think I'm going to leave it to Rosemary to talk about her contribution, the whole range of avenues in Palestine studies. Rosemary, can you hear me? Rosemary? Can you mute yourself?
She's not here, no.
Noor, it seems that she's left the session.
Has
according
she?
to the chat line. I haven't seen her come back on.
Okay. Is there any way of finding out? If not, I'll just
I think she's left the session.
Has she left the session? Okay. I mean, the first time I actually heard about Rosemary Sire was through her seminal book, From Peasants to Revolutionaries. And it was published in the late 70s by Z. And Rosemary once told me that at the time, Z Books was the only publisher actually prepared to publish her work. There were no publishers in London prepared to publish such a work. And since then, actually, the book was reprinted many times. But Rosemary taught me many things. She taught me the importance of Palestinian oral history. Again, it's actually from talking to Rosemary directly. And she once came to me and said, Noor, you've been writing so much about archives and archival sources and British archival sources and Israeli archival sources. Why aren't you writing about oral history of Palestine and Palestinians? And she was a pioneer in this direction. From the 80s or early 80s, she began collecting testimonies of refugees in Lebanon, of women in refugee camps in Lebanon. So she combined oral history with her work on Palestinian refugee women in the camps of Lebanon. So I think she pioneered two areas or two avenues. One is oral history of Palestine, which encouraged her work, encouraged centers at Birzeit University, centers at Beirut now, the Nakba archives, to go in that direction. I think oral history of Palestine and the Palestinian Nakba, this is something we hugely indebted to that pioneering work of Rosemary. Also her work with women in refugee camps in Lebanon. Another direction she took is to look at textbooks for Palestinian kids in UNRWA schools in Lebanon and Jordan. And she kept badgering me about, why don't we publish more about this topic? I mean, I can't begin to sum up the enormous range of her work and her pioneering. And also she's got a new book coming out now by I.B. Torres Bloomsbury, a highly timely book about the international solidarity movement. And she started to write this book a few years ago. And she asked me, you know, do I know about people who became pro-Palestinians? She meant people who are not Palestinians who are becoming pro. How do people become pro-Palestinian? Because Rosemary herself was brought up in Britain, and she met her husband, Yusuf Sayer, in the 50s, I think, in Iraq, when she went to teach at a college in Baghdad in the 50s, without being, at the time, being pro-Palestinian. She said she became a pro-Palestinian after meeting Yusuf Sayer, who another giant figure in Palestinian scholarship and in the PLO at the time. And I think this issue of pondering how people become pro-Palestinian is such a relevant and highly timely issue with the international solidarity movements across the world. Since the 50s, there is a sea change in the way being pro-Palestinian, becoming pro-Palestinian. And we know the international solidarity movement in Britain, in the US, it's an enormous movement. It's got branches everywhere. It's got millions of, and I think we saw it during the protest. I mean, here in Britain, we have protests every single Saturday, national protests, local protests, and that international global solidarity movement grows by the day. And people becoming pro-Palestinian. This is actually her new book coming out in February by I.B. Torres. I'm looking forward to this book. I'm sorry Rosemary could not be with us tonight, but I will personally get in touch with her and congratulate her in the next few days. Congratulations to all winners. We in the Palestine Book Awards, we the judges say all those shortlisted are winners, not just the 5 categories. So I just want to repeat again, congratulations to all those shortlisted and all the winners of that Palestine Solidarity, Palestine Book Award this 2023. And I'll take it back now to Eugene and to Aisha. Thank you all.
Noor, thank you so much. And what a pleasure to see so many outstanding books honored with the Palestine Book Award 2023. It's been a very moving evening. It's been remarkable to come together with the authors, with the judges, with an audience that we can't see, but that we know shares so much the same feelings that have driven every one of our authors in the books that they have written, and all of their readers who will be enjoying these books in the coming year. I don't know if Aisha has anything more to say, but from my end, I would just like to wish all of our successful prize winners congratulations. All of our shortlisted authors, congratulations. Thanks to the judges for the hard work they put in shortlisting and then choosing between these amazing books. And thanks to Middle East Monitor for bringing us all together each year to celebrate the very finest in Palestinian letters, the Palestine Book Award. So my thanks to you all and good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.